praise the Lord to everyone. Good evening and praise the Lord to everyone. On behalf of ACE Choir, I welcome you to this devotion of Holy Rosary. We are extremely sorry for the delay due to some technical issues. Before beginning this Rosary prayer, I request all of you to kindly keep your phones in silent mode. A short introduction about the Rosary. Catholic believes that the Rosary is a remedy against severe trials, temptations, and the hardships of life, and that the Rosary is one of the greatest weapons given to believers in their battle against every evil. Saints and popes have emphasized the meditative and contemplative elements of the Rosary and provided specific teachings for how the Rosary should be prayed. For instance, the need for focus, respect, reverence, and purity of intention during Rosary recitation and contemplation. Contemplation is an essential characteristic of the Christian life. Praying the Rosary fosters this theological dimension of life as we contemplate the mysteries in the lives of our Lord Jesus and of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and then pray with that dialogue of praise and petition, and not just once but many times, because great love is not content with a little. A Christian's ordinary life is made up of joys and sorrows and of hope for better days. The Rosary consists of joyful, sorrowful, glorious, and luminous mysteries, because all of us are called to be saints. Every circumstance in our life can be sanctified. It is always possible for us to meet Christ and to live in the presence of His mother. The Lord chose to be born of her, to live with her during most of His life on earth, and also to die in her presence. Believing in the strongest intercession of Mary, let us make sign of the cross.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Mary, our model in ordinary life. We cannot forget that Mary spent nearly every day of her life just like millions of other women who look after their families, bring up their children, and take care of their houses. Mary sanctifies the ordinary, everyday things, what some people wrongly regard as unimportant and insignificant. Everyday work, looking after those closest to you, visits to friends and relatives. What a blessed ordinariness that can be so full of love of God. Let us begin this Rosary by singing a hymn to Mary.
As I kneel before you, as I bow
I believe in God, the Father Almighty,
creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He descended into hell. On the third day he rose again from the dead. He ascended into heaven, and is seated at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From there he will come to judge the living and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and the life everlasting. Amen.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us, Lord, from evil. Amen.
For increase in faith, hope, and love. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Lady, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
As today is Thursday, we will follow the mystery of light.
First mystery of light, the baptism in the Jordan. O Mother, most holy, help us and pray for us, that we sinners may realize and repent for our sins. We also pray for the conversion of hard-hearted sinners, so that they may change and turn towards God. Mother Mary, please intercede for us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us, Lord, from evil. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
O my Jesus,
Forgive us our sins, save us from the fires of hell. Lead all souls to heaven, especially those most in need of thy mercy. Amen.
Mary, intercede for us to sanctify the ordinary and everyday things. Mary, seat of wisdom,
Pray for us. Second mystery of light, the wedding feast of Cana. Mother Mary, intercede for us that we can be sensitive towards our surroundings as you were Mama, and hence miracle took place at that time. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us, Lord, from evil. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners,
Now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners,
Now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners,
Now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners,
now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy
Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy
Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners,
now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners,
now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary,
Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. O my Jesus, forgive us our sins, save us from the fires of hell, lead all souls to heaven, especially those most in need of thy mercy. Amen. Mary, intercede for us to sanctify the ordinary and everyday things. Mary, seat of wisdom, pray for us.
Third mystery of light, the proclamation of the kingdom of God. In this mystery, I'd like to pray for all the Catholics that we may realize that Jesus knows us and has called us by our name. Hence, let us grow strongly in His love. Mother Mary, to intercede for us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us, Lord, from evil. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
O my Jesus,
Forgive us our sins, save us from the fires of hell. Lead all souls to heaven, especially those most needy of thy mercy. Amen.
Mary, intercede for us to sanctify the ordinary and everyday things. Mary, seat of wisdom,
Pray for us.
The fourth mystery of light, the Transfiguration. Lord Jesus, you are the light of the world. Your light must shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your heavenly Father. Mary, our Mother, grant us the courage to shine Jesus' light in our lives through our talents, works, bearing witness to all His blessings in our lives. And whoever sees the light may believe. Mother Mary, intercede for us. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us.
Lead us not into temptation,
But deliver us from evil. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners,
now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
O my Jesus,
Forgive us our sins, save us from the fires of hell. Lead all souls to heaven, especially those most in the need of thy mercy. Amen.
Mary, intercede for us to sanctify the ordinary and everyday things. Mary, seat of wisdom,
Pray for us.
Fifth mystery of light, the institution of the Eucharist. Till date, the institution of the Holy Eucharist strengthens us spiritually, the real body and the real blood. We pray that all of us who receive this Eucharist may remain ever grateful to the Lord Jesus and do our best to give our whole self to Him. Mary, do intercede for this. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us, Lord, from evil. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
O my Jesus,
Forgive us our sins, save us from the fires of hell. Lead all souls to heaven, especially those most in need of thy mercy. Amen.
Mary, intercede for us to sanctify the ordinary and everyday things. Mary, seat of wisdom,
Pray for us.
Hail, Holy Queen,
Mother of mercy, hail our life, our sweetness, and our hope. To thee do we cry, poor banished children of Eve. To thee do we send up our sighs, mourning and weeping in this valley of tears. Turn then, the most gracious Advocate, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile, show unto us the blessed fruit of thy womb, Jesus. O clement, O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary. Amen. Let us kneel for the litany. Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy.
Christ have mercy.
Christ have mercy.
Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy.
Christ hear us.
Christ graciously hear us.
God the Father of heaven,
Have mercy on us.
God the Son Redeemer of the world,
Have mercy on us.
God the Holy Spirit,
Have mercy on us.
Holy Trinity, one God.
Have mercy on us.
Your response will be, pray for us. Holy Mary,
Pray for us.
Holy Mother of God,
Pray for us.
Holy Virgin of Virgins,
Pray for us.
Mother of Christ,
Pray for us.
Mother of Divine Grace,
Pray for us.
Mother most pure,
Pray for us.
Mother most chaste,
Pray for us.
Mother inviolate,
Pray for us.
Mother undefiled,
Pray for us.
Mother most amiable,
Pray for us.
Mother most admirable,
Pray for us.
Mother of good counsel,
Pray for us.
Mother of our Creator,
Pray for us.
Mother of our Savior,
Pray for us.
Virgin most prudent,
Pray for us.
Virgin most venerable,
Pray for us.
Virgin most renowned,
Pray for us.
Virgin most powerful,
Pray for us.
Virgin most merciful,
Pray for us.
Virgin most faithful,
Pray for us.
Mirror of justice,
Pray for us.
Seat of wisdom,
Pray for us.
cause of our joy,
Pray for us.
spiritual vessel,
Pray for us.
vessel of honor,
Pray for us.
singular vessel of devotion,
Pray for us.
mystical rose,
Pray for us.
Tower of David,
Pray for us.
Tower of ivory,
Pray for us.
House of gold,
Pray for us.
Ark of the covenant,
Pray for us.
Gate of heaven,
Pray for us.
Morning star,
Pray for us.
Health of the sick,
Pray for us.
Refuge of sinners,
Pray for us.
Comforter of the afflicted,
Pray for us.
Help of the Christians,
Pray for us.
Queen of angels,
Pray for us.
Queen of patriarch,
Pray for us.
Queen of prophets,
Pray for us.
Queen of apostles,
Pray for us.
Queen of martyrs,
Pray for us.
Queen of confessors,
Pray for us.
Queen of virgins,
Pray for us.
Queen of all saints,
Pray for us.
Queen conceived without original sin,
Pray for us.
Queen assumed into heaven,
Pray for us.
Queen of the Most Holy Rosary,
Pray for us.
Queen of Peace,
Pray for us.
Queen of Family.
Pray for us.
Your response will be, spare us, O Lord. Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world,
Spare us, O Lord.
your response will be, graciously hear us, O Lord. Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world,
Graciously hear us, O Lord.
your response will be, have mercy on us. Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world,
Have mercy on us,
Pray for us, O Holy Mother of God.
that we may be made worthy of the promises of Christ.
Let us pray.
Grant, we beseech thee, O Lord God, that we, thy servants, may enjoy perpetual health of mind and body, and by the glorious intercession of the Blessed Mary, ever Virgin, be delivered from present sorrow, and enjoy eternal happiness through Christ our Lord. Amen.
The Memorare. Remember, O
Most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thy intercession, was left unaided. Inspired with this confidence, I fly to thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my Mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen.
a special prayer by Pope Francis during this time of pandemic COVID-19. O Mary,
You shine continuously on our journey as a sign of salvation and hope. We entrust ourselves to you, help of the sick, who at the foot of the cross were united with Jesus' suffering and persevered in your faith. Protectress of the Roman people, you know our needs, and we know that you will provide, so that, as at Cana in Galilee, joy and celebration may return after this time of trial. Help us, Mother of Divine Love, to conform ourselves to the will of the Father and to do what Jesus tells us. For he took upon himself our sufferings and burdened himself with our sorrows to bring us through the cross to the joy of the resurrection. Amen.
let us end this rosary dedicating a hymn to Mother.
Mother of Jesus and Mother of holiness, bearing the light of the world, radiant with glory, the glory of Jesus, conceived by the Spirit of God. Wondrous the moment that
Joseph,
pray for us.
Saint Faustina,
Pray for us.
Mother Teresa,
Pray for us.
Saint John Paul II,
Pray for us.
Saint Jose Maria Escriva,
Pray for us.
Saint Dominic,
Pray for us.
Saint Augustine.
Pray for us.
Let us make sign of the cross.
In the name of our Father, and
the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us in this Rosary devotion. After 10 minutes, we are going to begin the Holy Mass. Meanwhile, to prepare yourselves as we sing this hymn.
We welcome you, brothers and sisters. Ace Choir welcomes you to this virtual Holy Mass. This Mass was celebrated in the Archdiocese of Toronto by Father Francis. Before beginning the Mass, I request everyone to keep your phones in silent mode. Thank you. Let's make sign of the cross. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Let's arise for entrance hymn.
Celebrate God with your hands. Celebrate God with your voice. Celebrate God in all that you do, and He will be with you. Listen to Him with your ears. Listen to Him with your heart. Listen to Him as He speaks with you, and He will be with you. Celebrate God with your hands. Celebrate God with your voice. Celebrate God in all that you do, and He will be with you. Touch Him in all those you love. Touch Him in all those you love. Touch Him in them and let them touch you, and He will be with you. Celebrate God with your hands. Celebrate God with your voice. Celebrate God in all that you do, and He will be with you.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. The grace and peace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all. And with your spirit. Dear sisters and brothers, we are gathered as people who have experienced the resurrection of Christ. Once again, we are gathered to remind ourselves through this Eucharist that God always loves us and cares for us. But we as a human beings fall at times. We are not able to replicate the love that God shows us. So let us ask God's pardon and mercy. You are sent to heal the contrite of heart. Lord, have mercy.
Lord, have mercy.
You came to call the sinners. Christ, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
You are seated at the right hand of the Father to intercede for us. Lord, have mercy.
Lord, have mercy.
May Almighty God have mercy on us, forgive us our sins, and bring us to life everlasting.
Amen.
Let us pray. O God, who restore human nature to yet greater dignity than at its beginnings, look upon the amazing mystery of your loving kindness, and in those you have chosen to make new through the wonder of rebirth, may you preserve the gifts of your enduring grace and blessing. Through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever.
Amen.
In today's first reading, we will get to know that Paul says to people, God chose your ancestors and made the people great.
First reading from Acts of the Apostles, chapter 13, verses 13 to 25. Then Paul and his companions set sail from Paphos and came to Perga in Pamphylia. John, however, left them and returned to Jerusalem. But they went on from Perga and came to Antioch in Pisidia. And on the Sabbath day they went into the synagogue and sat down. After the reading of the law and the prophets, the officials of the synagogue sent them a message, saying, "Brothers, if you have any word of exhortation for the people, give it." So Paul stood up and with a gesture began to speak. "You Israelites and others who fear God, listen. The God of this people Israel chose our ancestors and made the people great during their stay in the land of Egypt. And with uplifted arm he led them out of it. For about 40 years he put up with them in the wilderness, after he had destroyed 7 nations in the land of Canaan. He gave them their land as an inheritance for about 450 years. After that, he gave them judges until the time of the prophet Samuel. Then they asked for a king, and God gave them Saul, son of Kish, a man of the tribe of Benjamin, who reigned for 40 years. When he had removed him, he made David their king. In his testimony about him, he said, "I have found David, son of Jesse, to be a man after my heart, who will carry out all my wishes. Of this man's posterity, God has brought to Israel a Savior, Jesus, as he promised. Before his coming, John had already proclaimed a baptism of repentance to all the people of Israel. And as John was finishing his work, he said, 'What do you suppose that I am? I am not he. No, but one is coming after me. I am not worthy to untie the thong of the sandals of his feet.'" The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Forever I will sing the goodness of the Lord. Forever I will sing the goodness of the Lord. and in my name his name shall be exalted. He shall cry to me, you are my Father, my God, and the rock of my salvation. Forever I will sing the goodness of the Lord.
Let's rise for acclamation.
Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Jesus Christ, you are the faithful witness, firstborn from the dead. You have loved us and washed away our sins in your blood. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.
In today's Gospel reading, we will hear that Jesus says, "Whoever receives me will receive him who sent me."
The Lord be with you.
And with your
A
spirit.
reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory be to you.
After Jesus had washed the feet of the disciples, he returned to the table and said to them, "Very truly I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. I am not speaking of all of you. I know whom I have chosen. But it is to fulfill the scripture. The one who ate my bread has lifted his heel against me. I tell you this now before it occurs, so that when it does occur, you may believe that I am he. Very truly I tell you, whoever receives one whom I sent receives me, and whoever receives me receives him who sent me." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
There is a natural tendency in each of us to crave for power, to be in control, wanting to be popular and well liked by all. It's not only the traits of our own time, it has existed from the beginning of human existence. We see this at the beginning of creation, where Adam and Eve wanted to be powerful. They wanted to be like God. Then we see Jacob cheating his brother and receiving the blessing from his father, which was reserved for the elder son. Then we see the fight between Saul and Daniel, Daniel and his sons. Then we come to the Gospel, where we are reminded of the request made by mother of James and John, asking Jesus a favor. Declare that these two sons of mine will sit, one at your right hand, one at your left in your kingdom. To this power hungry, needing to be on the top, wanting to control the other, the message of the gospel is very challenging. Very truly I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. We need to understand today's passage in light of what has happened just before this. Jesus washes the feet of his disciples. Jesus breaks a chain that existed from the beginning, the desire for power and control. Jesus says, servants are not greater than their master. If so, there's a clear underlying principle in effect that he invites each of us to do what he did. Being a master, he served. What do we see in the washing of the feet? The master becomes a slave. God serves humanity. In the word of trying to control one another, we are called to give up the control. We are called to let go of our God. We are called to put the others before ourselves. Servants are not greater than their master. When we clearly understand this concept, then our ego, our need to be in control, our need for popularity will disappear. We can become a better brother and sister to one another. Through the outbreak of the coronavirus in the past few months, we have learned that it affects each one of us. It does not matter our social, political, and economic status. We have learned that we are powerless. We have no control. We are all equal. On the positive side, the pandemic has allowed each of us to prioritize what is important in life. And I have seen in my own parish context how people are willing to serve the other. Be it picking up the grocery, getting the medicine, making food packages. The Lord has given us faith and calling. He has given us the truth, has given us the way, has given us the means to become holy by becoming a servant. This means we must live to the fullest extent the gospel of Jesus Christ. Otherwise, people may not believe in Christ because of us. And that should be a cause of great concern for each one of us. As Easter people who have witnessed the death and resurrection of Jesus, we know to what extent he would go to show his love for us. Being a master willing to stoop down to the level of a servant, even to the level of a slave. The reading clearly states, if you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. So, dear brothers and sisters, the invitation is, do we want to be blessed? Do we want to be identified as followers of Christ? Then let us go to the world and do what Jesus did, to serve and to give our life for the other. Let us bring forward prayers and petitions, knowing and trusting that God lovingly listens to us. Let's continue to pray for the world leaders, that they may make wise decisions that can promote the well-being of each human being and the nature. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer.
We pray for the church leaders, for the wisdom and knowledge to guide the people of God, and to continue to inspire through their own examples to become servants to each other. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For each of us, that we may continue to grow in love, grow in service, that we may continue to imitate the model that Christ gives to each of us. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our
prayer. For the sick and those who feel lonely, that they may continue to experience the God through our own service. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our
prayer. For all of those in the daily TV Mass community, who have asked to be included in our prayer intentions book, especially those asking for peace in their family. We pray to the Lord. Lord, hear our prayer. Let us take a moment to bring our own needs to God. We pray to the Lord. Lord, hear our prayer. Gracious and loving God, we bring before you all these prayers, knowing and trusting you always listen to us through Christ our Lord. Amen.
On this day of joy, on this day of hope, we come to you in love, O Lord. On this day of joy, on this day of hope, we come to you in love. With this bread and wine we come to this Eucharistic feast. On this day of joy, on this day of hope, we come to you in love. On this day of joy, on this day of hope, we come to you in love, O Lord. On this day of joy, on this day of hope, we come to you in love. Bread to be your body, Lord, wine to be your saving blood. On this day of joy, on this day of hope, we come to you in love. On this day of joy, on this day of hope, we come to you in love, O Lord. On this day of joy, on this day of hope, we come to you in love.
Pray, dear brothers and sisters, my sacrifice and yours may be acceptable to God the Almighty Father.
May the Lord accept the sacrifice at your hands for the praise and glory of his name, for our good and good of all his holy church.
May our prayers rise up to you, O Lord, together with the sacrificial offerings, so that purified by your graciousness, we may be conformed to the mysteries of your mighty love. Through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit,
Lift up your hearts.
we lift them up to the Lord.
Let us give thanks to the Lord our God.
It is right and just.
It is truly right and just, our duty and our salvation, at all times to acclaim you, O Lord, but in this time above all to love you yet more gloriously, when Christ our Passover has been sacrificed. He never ceases to offer himself for us, but defends us and ever pleads our cause before you. He is a sacrificial victim who dies no more, the Lamb once slain who lives forever. Therefore, overcome with the paschal joy, every land, every people exults in your praise, and even the heavenly powers with the angelic host sing together the unending hymn of your glory as they acclaim.
Lord, we lift up your name.
indeed holy, O Lord, the fount of all holiness. Make holy, therefore, these gifts, we pray, by sending down your Spirit upon them like the dew fall, so they may become for us the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. At the time he was betrayed and entered willingly into his passion, he took bread, giving thanks, broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take this, all of you, and eat of it, for this is my body, which will be given up for you."
My Lord, my God.
In a similar way, when supper was ended, he took the chalice once more, giving thanks. He gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take this, all of you, and drink from it, for this is a chalice of my blood, the blood of the new and eternal covenant, which will be poured out for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. Do this in memory of me."
My Lord, my God.
The mystery of faith.
We proclaim your death, O Lord, and profess your resurrection until you come again.
Therefore, as we celebrate the memorial of his death and resurrection, we offer you, Lord, the bread of life and the chalice of salvation, giving thanks that you have held us worthy to be in your presence and minister to you. Humbly we pray that, partaking of the body and blood of Christ, we may be gathered into one by the Holy Spirit. Remember, Lord, your church spread throughout the world, and bring her to the fullness of charity, together with Francis our Pope, Douglas our Bishop, and all the clergy. Remember also brothers and sisters who have fallen asleep in the hope of the resurrection, and all who have died in your mercy. Welcome them into the light of your face. Have mercy on us all, we pray, that with the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of God, with the Blessed Joseph, her spouse, with the blessed apostles and all the saints who have pleased you throughout the ages, we may merit to be co-heirs to eternal life, and may praise and glorify you through your Son, Jesus Christ. Through him, and with him, and in him, O God, Almighty Father, in the unity of the Holy Spirit, all glory and honor is yours forever and ever.
Amen.
At the Saviour's command and informed by divine teaching, we dare to say,
Our Father,
Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us, Lord, from evil.
deliver us, Lord, we pray, from every evil. Graciously grant peace in our days, that by the help of your mercy, we may be always free from sin and safe from all distress, as we await the blessed hope and the coming of our Savior, Jesus Christ. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Lord Jesus Christ, who said to your apostles, "Peace I leave you, my peace I give you," look not on our sins, but on the faith of your church, and graciously grant her peace and unity in accordance with your will, who live and reign forever and ever.
Amen.
The peace of the Lord be with you always.
And with your spirit.
Let's offer each other the sign of peace.
Lamb of God,
You take away the sin of the world. Have mercy on us. Lamb of God, you take away the sin of the world. Have mercy on us. Lamb of God, you take away the sin of the world. Grant us peace.
Behold the Lamb of God. Behold him who takes away the sins of the world. Blessed are those called to the supper of the Lamb.
Lord, I am not worthy that you should enter under my roof, but only say the word, and my soul shall be healed.
The body and blood of Christ.
Since we cannot receive the Holy Communion now, let us remember our first Holy Communion and best moment when we received the body and blood of Christ. Remembering that, let us partake in the spiritual communion by saying this prayer together. Immaculate Queen of heaven and earth, Mother of God and mediator of every grace, I believe that your dearly beloved Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, is truly, really, and substantially contained in the most holy sacrament. I love him above all things and long to receive him in my heart, since now I cannot receive him sacramentally. Be so good to place him spiritually in my soul and never permit me to be separated from him. Amen.
Jesus,
Let us say the prayer of the spiritual communion of Saint Thomas Aquinas. I thank you, Lord, Almighty Father, everlasting God, for having been pleased through no merit of mine, but of your great mercy alone, to feed me a sinner and your unworthy servant with the precious body and blood of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. I pray that this Holy Communion may not be for my judgment and condemnation, but for my pardon and salvation. Let this Holy Communion be to me an armor of faith and a shield of goodwill, a cleansing of all vices, and a rooting out of all evil desires. May it increase love and patience, humility and obedience, and all virtues. May it be a firm defense against the evil designs of all my visible and invisible enemies, a perfect quieting of all the desires of soul and body. May this Holy Communion bring about a perfect union with you, the one true God, and at last enable me to reach eternal bliss when you will call me. I pray that you bring me a sinner to the indescribable feast, where you, with your Son and the Holy Spirit, are to your saints true light, full blessedness, everlasting joy, and perfect happiness, through the same Christ our Lord. Amen. Let us say a prayer of priest of Saint Therese of Lisieux. O Jesus, eternal priest, keep your priests within the shelter of your sacred heart, where none may touch them. Keep unstained their anointed hands, which daily touch your sacred body. Keep unstained their lips, daily purpled with your precious blood. Keep pure and unearthly their hearts, sealed with the sublime mark of the priesthood. Let your holy love surround them and shield them from the world's contagion. Bless their labors with abundant fruit, and may their souls, to whom they minister, be their joy and consolation, here and in heaven, their beautiful and everlasting crown. Amen.
Let us pray. Almighty ever-living God, who restore us to eternal life in the resurrection of Christ, increase in us, we pray, the fruits of this Paschal sacrament, and pour into our hearts the strength of this saving food. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. The Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Let us go forth in peace to serve one another. Thanks be to God.
No man can live as an island, journey through life alone. Since where most the Lord Jesus, thank you for coming into our mind, body, soul. Lord, help us that we can serve others as you have served. Lord Jesus, many a times we are surrounded with negativities, especially anger, pride, ego. Help us, Lord Jesus, that we may go away from all this negativity. And as we know that you are the truth, the way, and the life, help us, Lord, that we can only cling to you, your love. And Lord, help us whenever we are getting distracted or we are clinging to negativity. Be with us. Mama Mary, do intercede for all of us, that we may remember that one moment with Jesus Christ that has changed our life till now. For this we pray, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us, Lord, from evil. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Let's say the Memorare together. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thy intercession was left unaided. Inspired with this confidence, I fly to thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my Mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. O Queen of Heaven, rejoice now. Alleluia. Rejoice, for he who married though despair. Alleluia. He is risen as he foretold. Alleluia. Pray for us to the Father. Alleluia.
Rejoice and be glad, O Virgin Mary. Alleluia.
For the Lord has truly risen. Alleluia.
Let us pray.
O God, you deign to give joy to the world through the resurrection of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. Grant, we beseech you, that through his mother and the Virgin Mary, we may obtain the joys of everlasting life. Through the same Christ our Lord. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Virgin Mary,
Pray for us.
Saint Joseph,
Pray for us.
Saint Faustina,
Pray for us.
Saint Mother Teresa,
Pray for us.
Saint John Paul II,
Pray for us.
Saint Jose Maria Escriva,
Pray for us.
Saint Francis de Laval.
Pray for us.
Let's make sign of the cross. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for joining us in this virtual Holy Mass. Have a blessed evening ahead. Stay safe and take precautions. As this is the month of May, we are praying Rosary every day at 5 p.m. in the evening. Do join us. Thank you.